Can you learn web development for free? Yes, you can with the Odin Project. And in this series of videos, I am recording myself, my learning path to show you how you can learn web development for free using the Odin Project. This is the second video, and we are continuing today with my learning path to show you what you can learn, what you will learn completely free with the Odin Project. So today we have the introduction part. This series of videos will continue until we finish the learning path. So in order to continue learning about the Odin Project and getting the skills for web development, don't miss the following videos. Follow the channel, like and share so as to help us reach other people and help them learn, help them in this path of web development. Today's class, the second video, is about introduction. I will read, I will show you what this class is about, so let's get started. It says here, introduction. What do web developers do? In short, they build and maintain websites. Web developers often work for clients who are trying to get their product or service onto the web. The work is typically project focused and involves collaborating with a team to coordinate the client's needs into the end product. The client could be a tech company, an organization, or a government. The work could involve front-end, back-end, or full-stack web development. That is what they do. Okay. Web development could be a good profession for you if you like solving logical problems, building useful things, and experimenting with new technologies. Web developers are in high demand, generally have a good work-life balance, and command comfortable salaries. Google your specific location to get a better sense of your local web development job opportunities. So I can personally say that there are many opportunities for web developers around the world. In my country, especially in the United States, so it's a good field. It's a good field to study and to work. Let's continue. The lesson overview for today is this section contains a general overview of topics that you will learn in this lesson. So you will learn about different types of web developers. You will learn to recognize different types of clients and employers. You'll also learn about tools you'll be using regularly. Okay, let's begin with the types of web developers. Earlier, we mentioned that web development work could be in the front end, the back end, or the full stack. What exactly do these terms mean? Let's begin with the front end. The front end is the stuff you see on the website in your browser. It's what you see. Include the presentation of content and user interface elements like the navigation bar. Front-end developers use HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and their relevant frameworks to ensure that content is presented effectively and that users have an excellent experience. Now let's see what's the back end. The back end refers to the guts of the application which live on the server. That is why we don't see it. The back end stores and serves program data to ensure that the front end has what it needs. This process can become very complicated when a website has millions of users. Back-end developers use programming languages like Java, Python, Ruby, and JavaScript to work with data. And finally, what is full stack? Full stack developers are comfortable working with both the front and back ends. At the Odin Project, we focus on teaching you full stack development, covering all aspects of web development. And I think that that is the best approach because you cover everything, you learn everything. And as regards the types of careers, so let me read it for you. Now that you know about the different types of web developers, let's cover what we mentioned earlier about the different types of clients and employers you may work with. Large tech companies such as Google, Meta, and Amazon have very stringent hiring requirements. If you successfully meet these expectations, they offer excellent paid benefits and opportunities. It's a little complicated to get a job there. Other field. Startups are a bit like the Wild West. For a junior developer, it can feel like a trial by fire because of the pace of development. Startups often offer slightly lower salaries and require longer hours, but they may also offer equity in the company and highly unique environments. I think that this is specific about the USA. Okay, the situation could be different in other countries. For example, in my country, no company would offer you equity. Okay, let's continue. Freelancer. As a freelancer, you could command a strong hourly wage and the freedom to schedule and design your own products. However, you would be responsible for getting your own work, which means less coding time, managing billing from clients, which can be difficult, and being solely responsible. Strong people skills are necessary for this path as a freelancer. Could be a little more complicated, but I think personally I think is more promising, maybe because I am a freelancer, not in this field but in another one. Next, as a consultant. As a consultant for a web consultancy, you would give up some of your freelancing wage potential, but be able to focus more on the code and less on the hustle. This option also provides a good work-life balance and pay. So this is another option. And finally, large older companies still need web developers. These companies offer a good work-life balance, pay, and benefits, but often move slower than a company that is highly focused on tech. So those are the different opportunities as regards careers, types of careers. The path that you will follow is up to you. Now, this section is about the tools of the trade. So let me continue reading for you. These are some of the basic tools you will use regularly. You may not know what they are now, but you mostly certainly will going forward. What are those? First of all, a computer. Obviously, you are learning web development. You need a good computer. Most people like laptops. Personally, I prefer PCs because you can improve. You can add more. You can add, like for example, a video card. You can add more memory, etc. And good laptops for web development are more expensive. So I suggest you, it's my opinion, go for a PC instead of a laptop. But if you have the money to pay for a good laptop with a wider screen, or you can add another screen to your laptop so you can have both views when you develop, that would be great. Is what I think. Okay, next, Google. Google is also another tool of the trade. And what is Google? Google, everybody knows Google. You're having a view of the main screen of Google. Okay, so we can look for the information, do whatever we want here. Another tool of the trade is a text editor. What is a text editor? Here I have a definition by Wikipedia, and let me read what it's about. It says here, a text editor is interactive software that allows a user to edit plain text, such as Notepad, which is the most common text editor that people are familiar with. It continues, as with any other software, a text editor can be installed onto a system, but often a relatively simple text editor is included in a default installation of an operating system. Since editing text files is a relatively basic need for any system, and since a simple text editor can be provided at relatively low cost. So as I mentioned before, the common text editor Notepad is already included in Windows. Okay, I guess Mac has its own text editor, but there are other text editors that are free and that have more functions. So I think that in this course we will use one of those. And it continues, as source code is text, any text editor can be used to edit code, but a source code editor is designed with features specifically intended for editing code. Some provide integration with software development tools and provide a debugging environment. So that is what I mentioned. I just mentioned it. So for programming, for HTML or Java or whatever, it is necessary to have a text editor with more functions. So if I go down here in this definition, there's a lot to read and I won't go through it. I suggest you read it because you will learn a lot. So there is a list. There is a list here in the end. Here, see also list of text editors, and here there are some. Now, LB's extensible versatile editor, if, GNU for Emacs, language sensitive editor, TextAdept, Vile, etc., etc. Those are text, and here we have a graphical user interface. These are the different names of the different options, so there are a lot. I think that the Odin project will suggest one. Let's wait to see what it offers, what it demands, but so far it was good to have just an idea of what it's like. Okay, so also we have a command line interface, a CLI, command line interface. What is that? Command line interface, again with Wikipedia. A command line interface, also known as a command line shell, is a means of interacting with software via commands, each formatted as a line or text. Command line interfaces emerged in the mid-1960s on computer terminals as an interactive and more user-friendly alternative to the non-interactive mode available with punch cards. For nearly 3 decades, CLI was the most common interface for software, but today a graphical user interface is more common. Nonetheless, many programs such as operating system and software development utilities still provide CLI. A CLI enables automating programs since commands can be stored in a script file that can be used repeatedly. A script allows its contained commands to be executed as a group, as a single program. A CLI is made possible by command line interpreters or command line processors, which are programs that execute input commands. Alternatives to CLI include a GUI, a graphical user interface, including the desktop metaphors such as Windows, text-based menuing, including DOS Shell and IBM AIX Smith, and keyboard shortcuts. And you can have here, let me show you this picture, what command line interface what it looks like. Okay, so let's get back. That is one option. Another option is this one. So we'll be working with this also. This is also another tool of the trade. And then it also mentions a Stack Overflow. What is a Stack Overflow? Let's see. A Stack Overflow is this. This is my profile on Stack Overflow. And here, this is to manage it. But what is this? It seems it shows some links like to some articles. It seems to me a tool for education. But let's see how they define themselves. So welcome to Stack Overflow, says over here. It says here, Stack Overflow is a question and answer site for professional and enthusiast programmers. Question and answer site, okay? It's built and run by you as part of the Stack Exchange network of question and answer sites. With your help, we're working together to build a library of detailed, high-quality answers to every question about programming. Okay? Ask questions, get answers, no distractions. So if you have a question about programming, you go to Stack Overflow and you'll get the answer. That is what it was built for. Okay? You can ask about, says here, you can ask about specific programming problems, software algorithms, coding techniques, software development tools. So we'll learn how to use this. Okay. Then it mentions Git. Git is this. What is Git? It says here, Git is a free and open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to very large projects with a speed and efficiency. Git is lightning fast and has a huge ecosystem of GUIs, hosting services, and command line tools. So you can go to their website. You can see the URL here and find more information about it. So we will work with that also. And finally, GitHub. GitHub is this. I'm showing you my profile. I have some small software. This is my dashboard, but GitHub is like a community where you can host your projects. You can show your projects, and actually it's very good because you can showcase your projects, as I said, and you can use that when you are looking for a job as a programmer. So over here I have some very small projects uploaded, a practice here, cat practice that I used to do. The software here, put it into practice. Is not something too complicated. It's a very short code, okay, that I use in another site. So, but anyway, this is just to show you what it looks like and what it is for. So those are the tools of the trade. Remember, you learn to work with this in order to do programming: computer, Google, text editor, command line interface, Stack Overflow, Git, and GitHub. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is motivation. Learning to code is incredibly rewarding, but can also be difficult and frustrating. The strongest assets you can have as a student are a desire to build, a problem-solving mind, and persistence in the face of setbacks. You need to develop those characteristics, those abilities. The web development industry has a long history of successful developers with varying backgrounds. So people tend to care more about what you've actually built than how you got there. And that is very common nowadays. In some cases, well, this is to motivate you. Some people have become full stack developers even without going to the university. Yeah, without having a degree. So you simply show your work, what you can do on a platform like GitHub, and you can get hired. What is more important is what you can actually do. Okay. So now the next section is why Odin? Why the Odin Project? Okay, we want you to know that this will not be easy. There are plenty of other online curriculums for beginners, but they are often taught in an extremely isolated and controlled environment and cover only a specific topic. The Odin Project takes a realistic view of what you need to know and has you set up and work in your own environment, much like what you'll be doing when you get a job. It acknowledges that you need a wide variety of skill sets and languages to reach an employable level. The Odin Project is constantly evolving because of people like you who get further along in the curriculum and pay it forward by incrementally improving our content over time. Once you start to feel comfortable with the tools, start contributing to open source projects like contributing to the Odin Project. The more you contribute, the more you will learn about what you can do, and the closer you will get to being hireable. These projects will also look great on your own resume. That is why Odin Project is different to other platforms where you can learn for free. Personally, I think this one is the best, so go for it. And in conclusion, hopefully you've gained a better idea of what a web developer actually does and what your life might look like if you decided to take it on as a career. This has only been a teaser into the world of web development. In this Foundations course, you'll take a journey through the entire spectrum of topics that you will eventually need to know. This course jumps around to a variety of topics that you may be totally unfamiliar with, providing you a small taste of each and then moving on. The following courses will dive deep into these topics. You will build dozens of scripts, projects, and websites to cement those skills that will get you hired. And yes, it's going to be challenging, but it's also going to be fun, and it might even be life-changing. What are you waiting for? And that is exactly why I decided to follow this path, learn, because I have some idea, I have some studies long ago about computer science and programming in general, but not about the specifics of web development. So I know some HTML, I know how to read code, etc. But I'm following this path, and I am recording myself as a way to motivate myself to continue with this, and I want to share it with you. So go for it, try it. Maybe this is your path also. Assignment. It says here, check out the post Why Learning to Code is So Damn Hard, which was written by the founder of the Odin Project. This article gives a realistic view of what the journey ahead is like. And second, read Udacity's blog post on front end, back end, and full stack developments. Let's see. Let me open this link. Let me see how long this is in this moment, because I've been like 20 something minutes here. Okay, it's very long. So let me see how long is it going to take to read it. Okay, let's see. Let's do it. It was written on March the 16th, 2025. Why Learning to Code is So Damn Hard. This article was written by Eric Trotman, the founder of the Odin Project. What every beginner absolutely needs to know about the journey ahead. Quincy Larson was just a guy in a suit in an office and decided he wanted to learn how to code. So he asked around. He started by picking up a bit of Ruby, then found himself skimming through other languages like Scala, Clojure, and Go. He learned Emacs, then Vim, and even the Dvorak keyboard layout. He picked up Linux, dabbled in Lisp, and coded in Python while living on the command line for more than half a year. Like a leaf in a tornado, the advice Quincy received jerked him first one way and then another, until he had finally taken every online course program imaginable. By the end of it all, despite having ultimately landed a software development job, Quincy was convinced that the seemingly normal programmers I ran into were actually sociopaths who had experience, then repressed the trauma of learning to code. Ouch! Does that sound familiar? They are sociopaths, and look at that image. Okay. Phase 1, the hand-holding honeymoon. It's really hard to blame anyone for coming into the programming industry with outrageous expectations. On the one hand, you've heard rumors of how difficult programming is since you were young, like old wives' tales meant to scare children into studying social sciences instead. On the other, the Learn to Code movement has done a fantastic job of breaking down barriers and showing people that code is actually quite harmless. Tools like Codecademy and Treehouse reach out with the gentlest of touches to assure you that you too, nay, anyone, can not just learn to code but become a full-fledged developer as well. Suddenly, the problem isn't fear. It's an overabundance of hopes and high expectations. And for the most part, these introductory tools do a great job of guiding you, like a child in a crosswalk path, past the big scary variables and conditional statements, and through the early phases of programming syntax. As you conquer one after another of their gamified challenges, your confidence rises. Maybe you can do this after all. How hard can it be? You're basically a developer already. And it shows us the learning curve, I see. Yeah, gaining confidence is the thing. The relation between confidence and competence. Okay, let's continue. Here's the problem. You're in what you're in what I like to call the hand-holding honeymoon phase. The hand-holding honeymoon phase. Though you may feel like the end is around the corner, you're only a fraction of the way there. This is just the beginning. Charting the path ahead. Before we dive into phase 2, let's look at the bigger picture. In this post, I'll walk you through the 4 phases of the typical journey into coding and what you'll need to do to survive each of them. You'll also see how 2 key factors, the density of resources and the scope of required knowledge, define this journey. The trek towards job readiness can be plotted in terms of how your confidence level changes as your capability increases. And here we have a graphic again, coding confident versus competence until you reach job ready level. Okay? This is a relevant relationship because your confidence is highly correlated with your happiness, and because the point where your confidence and capabilities match is the best proxy. I have for the sweet spot when you are officially job ready. No. Cambia. This is a relevant relationship because your confidence is highly correlated with your happiness, and because the point where your confidence and capabilities match is the best proxy I have for the sweet spot when you're officially job ready. We'll look into the unique challenges of the remaining 3 phases in a moment, but this is what each of them essentially involves. Number 1, the hand-holding honeymoon is the joy-filled run through highly polished resources, teaching you things that seem tricky but are totally doable with their intensive support. You will primarily learn basic syntax but feel great about your accomplishments. Number 2, the cliff of confusion is the painful realization that it's a lot harder when the hand-holding ends and it feels like you can't actually do anything on your own yet. Your primary challenges are constant debugging and not quite knowing how to ask the right questions as you fight your way towards any kind of momentum. Number 3, the desert of despair is that long and lonely journey through a pathless landscape where every new direction seems correct, but you're frequently going in circles and you're starving for the resources to get you through it. Be aware the merges of mania, like sirens of the desert, which will lead you astray. Number 4, the upswing of awesome is when you finally found a path through the desert and pulled together an understanding of how to build applications. But your code is still siloed and riddled like a house of cards. You gain confidence because your sites appear to run. You've mastered a few useful patterns, and your friends think your interfaces are cool, but you're terrified to look under the hood, and you ultimately don't know how to get to production-ready code. How do you bridge the gap to a real job? So those are the four phases, stages a developer has to go through. Let's continue reading. I've interviewed hundreds of aspiring developers over the past several years and heard echoes of the same story again and again. My goal for this post is that you approach the learner's journey with both eyes open and enough of a plan that you can avoid the common pitfalls of those who have come before you. Let's get back into phase 2, the cliff of confusion. So, you are in phase 1, the hand-holding honeymoon. checking off badges and completing coding challenges while your confidence and capabilities grow. This isn't so bad. What's all the fuss about? You've arrived at the peak of irrational exuberance. Be careful. You're about to overstep a precipice that's broken many strong aspiring learners and relegated them to the coding is too hard camp. The precise moment this leap occurs is the first time you sit down at your keyboard, open up your text editor, and try to build a project from scratch without any of the fancy in-browser editors, scaffolded code, or helpful hints. So completely by yourself. Crap. You might stretch this out a bit by following tutorials, but no one has ever reached the skies without leaving the ground. And at some point, you are going to have to create magic from a blank text file. You have just entered the second phase of learning where confidence comes crashing down to earth, the cliff of confusion. So right here. So you build, you fight, and scratch your way to a barely functional solution, but there's something missing. You are at a war with bugs that make Starship Troopers look benign. It feels like each victory was gained only by a stroke of lucky googling, and your confidence that you can never figure this stuff out plummets. This is particularly frustrating phase to see as an educator and to all participants in our industry. Programming may not be perfect for everyone, but we want you to make progress because sometimes the unlikeliest of stories become the grandest successes. When the hand-holding ends and students are pushed off the cliff and told to fly, too many potentially awesome people are spiraling onto the rocks of frustration without learning how to flap their wings. The scary part is that you haven't even gotten to the meat stuff yet. This second phase, the cliff of confusion, is still very early. Once you finally squash enough bugs to end the 8th plague of Egypt and actually finish a couple of projects, thus marking the end of phase 2, you are still just getting started. We have to be very realistic. For those who are truly ready to make a career out of this, surviving the cliff of confusion is often the point where you decide to go all in with your new life. But too many are left behind, and unfortunately, you're just about to enter the desert of despair. The two key factors at play. So, what really marks the difference between one phase and the next? Why was phase 2, the cliff of confusion, so awful compared to phase 1, the hand-holding honeymoon? Understanding this will help you realize that it's not your fault at all if your journey looks like what we've just described. Basically, there are two key forces at work in every phase: resource density and scope of knowledge. Let's see what these are before exploring how they define phase 3. Factor 1, resource density. As I said above, when you first start out, it feels like there are a million resources out there trying to hold your hand and pull you into coding. That's because there are. Search for Learn to Code, and you'll be hit with a wall of helpful and useful tools, texts, videos, and tutorials. And frankly, they're great. Never before have there been so many ways to start learning to code. Unfortunately, in later phases, the density of resources drops off fast. Anyone who's made the jump from beginner to intermediate can attest that there is a big difference between the amount of resources available when you first start out versus when you are first looking for help building things on your own without too much hand-holding. This problem exacerbates as the amount of knowledge increases rapidly entering phase 3, and is one reason why we call that phase the desert of despair. Once you get past this and start to become comfortable with what exactly you need to search for, the resources return and you're able to work with more technical tools like industry blogs and screencasts. Part of this is just understanding which questions to ask. Here's what the resource density looks like in each phase. Greater line density indicates more resources. So let's look at this. Hand-holding honeymoon is right here, many resources. Cliff of confusion, desert of despair, less resources. Upswing of awesome, other resources appear. So, and here is a list of the things, okay? You can check the article yourself and look at all this. Next, factor 2, the scope of knowledge. Now, let's talk about a related issue, the scope of knowledge. This represents the total breadth of new topics you need to learn in each phase. Here's what it looks like. So 1, 2, 3, 4 phases maybe, the breadth of knowledge. Key topics, basic syntax, building debugging. Here you learn CS fundamentals, object orientation, agile development, modularity, frameworks, code smells, etc., etc. Here, testing, best practices, optimization, architecture, data modeling systems. Let's continue reading. When you first start learning, the set of things you need to understand is narrow. Everyone, regardless of goals or language or background, needs to figure out what a for loop is, how to build conditional logic, and other basic structures of programming syntax. There ultimately aren't even that many of these fundamental concepts, so the scope of knowledge during that phase is very narrow. As soon as you get away from the basics, you see a rapid broadening of the scope of knowledge as you need to begin picking up things that are more difficult, like understanding errors and when to use the code you now know how to use. This is different because there is no correct answer to a clear question. Things get fuzzy. When you progress into the third phase, the scope of knowledge balloons wider. You now need to understand what tools to use, what language to learn, underlying CS fundamentals, how to write modular code, object orientation, good style, and how to ask for help, to name just a few. Every trip to Google or Hacker News takes you down another set of rabbit holes and overwhelms you with more things you don't know but feel like you should. You don't know what you don't know. Only when you finally found some traction and left the desert does the scope again begin to narrow. By that point, you've found your chosen technology and its place in the ecosystem. You finally, pretty much, know what you don't know and can plot a path through it. You will continue to increase focus as you push onward and into the beginning of your career. Phase 3, the desert of despair. Phase 3, the desert of despair. With an understanding of these factors, you can see that the cliff of confusion is really just a turning point. The pain caused by the toxic combination of a rapidly increasing scope of knowledge and a falling resource density results in what I call the desert of despair, this area here. In essence, this desert is where you know there's an end somewhere, but you don't know how to get there. The desert is long and fraught with dangers. You'll find yourself drawn to merges of mania along the way. Thousands of tempting resources which appear to hold the solutions you are looking for, but which will deposit you once again in a place where lonely sand extends to each horizon line. Maybe you sign up for a couple of MOOC courses from Coursera or Udacity or edX, or you find a tutorial which purports to take you all the way. You thought you learned the lessons of the hand-holding honeymoon, that there are no easy answers. But the temptation to seek salvation is too great, and you fall for the promise that this one will get you to the finish where the others did not. You can learn this stuff in a week or a month or a single college class, no matter what anyone says to stop falling for that. There is a lot more to learn than you probably expected. Even if you're able to get some apps running, it's hard not to feel lost in the greater scheme of becoming a true professional. It's difficult to measure your progress. How do you know what you need to learn, or if you're even learning the right things? Even if you're pointing the right direction, it's hard to measure your progress. You might feel totally lost until the very moment when you're finally able to build something that looks and acts the way you expected it to. But with enough perseverance and a good compass, you'll eventually get your first few real projects launched, and you'll realize that you are finally starting to get it. Sure, it's been hard up until now, but maybe this web dev stuff isn't so bad after all. Everything's coming out of Millhouse. Phase 4, the upswing of awesome. So it goes up, now the graphic changes, look. Okay, so it says, you've made it through the desert and your confidence is growing. Your Google Foo is excellent and you're finally able to understand those detailed industry blog posts and screencasts. Maybe you've gone deep into a particular language or framework and you have confidence that you can build and launch a functional application. This is the upswing of awesome. All may seem well to the outside, but you know deep down that you're not there yet. You can make the application work, but what's happening beneath the surface? Your code is duct tape and string, and worst of all, you don't even know which parts are terrible and which are actually just fine. Your periodic flashes of brilliance are countered by nude mistakes, and worse, a creeping suspicion that you still don't have a damn clue what you are doing. This is a bipolar phase. You feel like half of you is a bulletproof developer and the other half is a thin veneer of effectiveness covering a wild-eyed newbie who is in way too deep. The further you progress, the more a gnawing sense of uncertainty grows that someone is going to out you as a fraud. You feel like you should be a developer already, but the distance between the code you're writing and a professional work environment couldn't feel further away. Eventually, though, you'll make it. There's too much momentum not to. The desert of despair is behind you, and the cliff of confusion is a distant memory. You're finally, truly on the upswing. You're learning faster and more intelligently than ever before, and eventually, you will have absorbed enough best practices that your Swiss cheese knowledge coalesces into a production-grade skill set. The upswing of awesome always takes longer than you expect it to, and it feels like interminable because you are so close. But you will get there if you're persisting enough in the right ways. The topic of a future post for sure. You will convince someone to pay you to keep learning. The job is yours. Next topic, what it all looks like. It's like this. So now you have seen the road ahead and the reason why it can be difficult. When you combine all your phases we just covered with the factors that define it, it looks something like the following chart, like this. Well, up, down, and then up until job readiness. Okay, it's one thing to know the path and another to walk it. Let's get you started on the right foot. How to make it through a life. The journey seems intense, and frankly, it often is. It's important that you understand what you are in for, particularly if you go it alone. But you don't have to. There are ways to short-circuit most of these problems. Learning to code is rarely as easy as people make it out to be, but it's also rarely as difficult as it seems in the depths of your despair. In this section, I introduce the key tactics you can use to keep yourself pointed in the right direction. Surviving the hand-holding honeymoon. The plethora of available resources in the hand-holding honeymoon make it a lot of fun. They do a great job easing you into the kind of logical thinking you'll need to cultivate over the coming phases. It's a great time to start learning to code, so try to enjoy it and keep these two tips in mind. Number one, start by trying out different resources to find how you learn best and what sorts of projects are the most interesting to you. Maybe it's Khan Academy, quick challenges, code academies, in browser exercises, or Thinkful's one-on-one mentorship experience. Be open-minded as you start and ignore anything about what you should learn. All code is the same at this phase. Number two, then pick one resource and stick with it once you've found your feet. Work through to the end of their introductory course arc, which should give you all the foundational knowledge you need to write basic scripts and apps. Then get ready to start building your own. Surviving the cliff of confusion. Almost everyone will experience the cliff of confusion because the only way to become a developer is to, well, develop. You can pretend to be building by signing up for tutorials which masquerade as complete courses, but you are just putting off the inevitable. Tutorials are a good way to bridge from more high-touch introductory offerings, but you'll need to wean yourself off the pacifier and face the real world at some point. 3 tips for making the transition to building on your own. Number 1, work with someone else, even another beginner. You'll be surprised how much easier it is to debug an impossible error when sharing 2 pairs of eyes. Number 2, read other people's code to get comfortable with good patterns. Try to understand why the author did what they did. You wouldn't try to become a novelist without reading books as well, would you? Well, focus on this in an upcoming post, but for now, keep your eyes open for any small problems or projects that other people have written solutions for. And number 3, start small and build constantly. You should have interesting big projects in mind for the future, but you'll need to get comfortable debugging and searching for resources with bite-sized challenges. There's really no substitute for experience. Surviving the desert of despair. Once you've become comfortable debugging, your biggest problem becomes the fire hose of required knowledge and a total loss for how to learn it all. The desert of despair. In this case, what you really need is a strong path forward. The mirages of mania represent all the interesting side paths and rabbit holes and get skilled quick scams which ultimately waste your time. So, the keys to getting out of the desert of despair are: number 1, have a strong goal for what you want to accomplish, because otherwise you will end up chasing your tail, learning all kinds of interesting but ultimately unproductive things. If you have the time to spare, by all means, skip this. Number 2, find a strong path which leads directly to the goal you have set and verify that it will actually get you there. This is where you need to dig deeper than the marketing slogans and smiling faces on course websites or book jackets to ask, will this help me accomplish the goal I've set or not? Number 3, focus and avoid distractions, because if you are the kind of person who's interested in learning to code, you're also the kind of person who gets interested by learning all kinds of other awesome things. When coding gets difficult, you need to be able to push forward instead of just trying out the next cool looking thing. If you are able to identify a path and stick with it, you'll eventually push forward to the next phase instead of spending months or years chasing mirages across the shifting sands of this desert. Surviving the upswing of awesome. The upswing of awesome is one of the trickiest transitions. You can develop applications, but you really want to become a web developer. Getting past this phase and into a job requires you to do 3 things. Number 1, seek and follow best practices for programming. You need to understand the difference between a solution and the best solution. Best practices are a major difference between hacking on your own and building production quality code in a real job setting. Number two, check your assumptions, because you've probably skated with some gaping holes in your knowledge that you didn't even know you had. You need to diagnose and fix these holes. Number three, tackle the unsexy skills that are rarely addressed but highly important for transitioning into a professional setting. This includes things like testing, data modeling, architecture, and deployment, which are really easy to breeze past, but which are totally fundamental to good development. The key to accomplish these things and pushing through the upswing of awesome is to get feedback. Students who have learned entirely on their own may be productive, but rarely have the kind of legible, modular, and maintainable code that makes them attractive in a professional setting. You need to work with other humans who will challenge your assumptions, ask piercing follow-up questions, and force you to fix the leaks in your bucket of knowledge. So, can it be done? These all may sound overwhelming, but I promise that many others have persevered and survived this journey before you. By understanding the road ahead, you are already in a good spot to take it on with a focused plan and access to the right kind of help. Obviously, there isn't space in this particular post to dig as deeply into each phase of the journey as we'd like, or to provide the kind of granular how-to advice you deserve. That said, this is a journey with which we are quite familiar and about which we are highly passionate, so we want to help in any way we can. And it says a special thanks to person. Okay, so these were the things, the phases that a web developer goes through. It is important to be aware of that, and also aware of the things we need to make in order to become ready for job. And there is another post here. Let me see. No, let me open this as another page. Let's see if it's long or what. If it's too long, maybe I'll read for you separately. So 3 web dev careers decoded: front end versus back end versus full stack. Okay, so I will read this article in the next video, not at this moment because it's quite long, and so far we have been here 1 hour and 5 minutes. And finally, to end, we have the knowledge check. The following questions are an opportunity to reflect on key topics in this lesson. If you can answer a question, click on it to review the material, but keep in mind you are not expected to memorize or master this knowledge. So it's like a kind of review. So let's open this. Number 1 says, what kind of web developer till the Odin Project teach you to be? Let's see. Let me close this and this. Okay. What kind of web developer will the Odin Project teach you to be? I think it's a full stack web developer. That is the end of it. Okay. The link says types of web developers: front end, back end, full stack developers. Okay. It says clearly here, the Odin Project. At the Odin Project, we focus on teaching you full stack development covering all aspects of web development. So that is the answer. Next, what are the different types of careers you could have? Well, you can be, let's remember, you can work by yourself, you can work as a consultant, entrepreneur, you can be a junior developer. It was here before. Let's open it. Let's check. I don't remember exactly. And it's like that because I am also going through the same learning path that you are. So, types of careers. You can work for a large tech company, which is difficult, like Google or Meta. You can work in a startup, very demanding, lower salaries usually, but They are very exciting. You can work as a freelancer, I mentioned that, entrepreneur, also as a consultant, and also you can work in large older companies that still need web developers. And question 3, what are some of the tools you will be using regularly? Okay, Google, text editor, a command line, a Git, GitHub. And what else? Let's see. Let's check the answer. Oh, of course, a computer. I forgot the most important one. A computer, Google, the text editor, command line. Yeah, I forgot Stack Overflow for the questions. A Git and GitHub. Though that is, and we have finished this. Okay, this is the end of this lesson. I owe you the front end, back end, and full stack developer. I will leave it open so I will read it when opening the next video. Thank you for following me. Let me mark this as complete, and let's move on to the next lesson, motivation and mindset. So watch the next video. We will start with this blog article, and then we'll continue to checking this, how to develop these skills, these abilities, motivation and mindset. Okay, thank you for following me. Let's continue with this path. Thanks for accompanying me in this path. I'm pretty sure that we will become full stack developers. Bye bye. Have a good day.